So some of you may not know this, but I started a podcast. I didn't actually start a podcast. I was invited by a dude to join a podcast as the counterweight, like as the other dude, right? With somebody that plays for Inter Miami. And that dude's name's Julian Gressel. He's played for the U.S. national team. He's won 2 MLS Cups. He is objectively a good professional player. He's somebody that just joined Inter Miami, and he was going through a lot of crazy experiences because he just joined Inter Miami with, Luis Suarez, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, and Lionel Messi, who you may have heard of, right? Like all of those guys are on the team, and he joined them, and he reached out to this other guy. He was like, hey, I want to do a podcast. Do you have an idea of anybody I could do the podcast with? And then he said, yeah, I have no idea how that conversation went. They made a list. They got down to like 37 on the list, and then they picked me. Right, so we sat down to record the podcast. It's called Player Manager, has 1 episode out. This isn't technically an advertisement for that, but if you wanted to listen to the 1 episode at the end of this, I wouldn't be offended. And it's linked in the... No, I'm going to forget to do that. If it's not linked in the description, you can just search Player Manager. But the point is, we did a recording for this podcast, like a demo. We didn't know if we were going to stick with the podcast long term, if the vibe would work out. Maybe Julian and I are soulmates. Maybe we hate each other. I don't know. And so we recorded a podcast like an hour. The guy that put us together was listening to it the whole time. And essentially what the podcast turned into was me asking him really fanboy questions about, 1, just being a professional player, and 2, very relevantly, what it's like to play with Lionel Messi. And I have been experiencing something since that happened. 1, I am now 2 degrees of separation away from Lionel Messi, right? Which I am now better than all of you. I don't know how to break the news to you. I am I'm 2 degrees of separation away from Lionel Messi. Right? I talk to a guy on a regular basis who talks to Lionel Messi. Is that 1 degree of separation? I don't know how degrees of separation work. Why are they called degrees of separation? Like degrees of knowledge? I don't know. It's 4 a.m. I'm sitting here, green lights on, and we did 1 podcast, just 1, as a demo. Also, to sell to, apparently there's these things called podcast networks. This is news to me. If you didn't know how any of this works, you go to a podcast network and you're like, hey, you want to facilitate this podcast? So we recorded a demo to see maybe if any podcast network was interested. And in this whole fanboying hour-long session of me going, this is Lionel Messi like Cocoa Puffs, like that sort of nonsense, we got to talking about, I believe the question I asked was, at what point did Lionel Messi and kind of all of those 4 guys who are legends in their own right make you feel comfortable to be around them? Like, at what point were you not self-conscious to be like, hey, Leo, right? Like, Lionel, my homie. Like, at what point did you cross the bridge into being comfortable enough to talk to somebody like that? And of course, Julian's answer was, walked right into the locker room, shook his hand, hi, I'm Julian. Right? I guess these people are professional athletes, and so it would be a little different than me meeting Lionel Messi, where I don't already have street cred in Lionel Messi's eyes, where if I'm introduced as like, hey, we just signed this guy that won the MLS Cup. He's here to help us try and win an MLS Cup. You get a little bit more street cred. So I was asking the question from my point of view. But then Julian talked about how they were in training, and that in training, they were kind of figuring out, what languages everybody speaks. And of course, it's kind of famous that Lionel Messi does not speak English, or at least does not speak English very well. And so Julian speaks some Spanish, and so they're communicating that way. And then all of a sudden, and just Julian telling this story, it's not me just regurgitating it to you. And there's a point to all of this, I promise, because this has gotten completely out of hand. But Julian just says in a game in Saudi Arabia, like one of those friendlies they played in Saudi Arabia as a team, Lionel Messi comes up to him and starts speaking English, like giving, talking about a tactical adjustment that he wants to make, essentially in English, like, oh, Jordi Alba's going to come up now, you stay deeper. And then he starts to walk away, and he comes back and he goes, my English is good, no? Which, one, I always had a good feeling that Lionel Messi was a chill dude. Not that you can take too much from one conversation, But that is a very like joking around in the middle of a match kind of chill dude thing to be doing to ease almost a service that you can do if you're Lionel Messi. You can make people feel more comfortable around you because it's got to be nerve-wracking, right? Julian Gressel plays right behind Lionel Messi. And I know Julian would probably never admit it, but yeah, there's got to be some nerves in there that like, if you miss Messi with a pass, you're like, does Messi think I'm worthy? Right? Like that's got to be really intense pressure. So he's clearly lightening the mood, but also that was it. Lionel Messi spoke a little English, joked about it. That was good English. No, that was it. Except it wasn't. I have never gone truly viral before. And it's not, I want to be clear, it's not me going viral. I have a few thoughts about this, but if you open Google and type Messi English and go to news, all of these articles, every single one of them, like Julian Gressel's, they're all from that conversation that I had in another dude, like with another dude in a call on Wednesday. Every single one of these. It's a weird feeling. If you go to Twitter and you type Messi English, there's huge tweets from some very big football accounts. You've got like the European lad. You've got 433. They put it up on Instagram too. All of this. I'm allergic to the fame. It's already going to my head. All of this is from that one conversation we had, which taught me two things. One, I am now on the other side of the glass. I feel very weird about that. I am now somebody that is being put in front of a lot of people, at least in a secondhand way, right? Because all of these, talking about the podcast, a few of them mention me, although I obviously not somebody that's relevant to this story at all. I did do my due diligence as a creator and started responding to a lot of these tweets with the actual clip from the podcast. I don't really know if that's like good creator decorum or not. I have no idea. I don't blame these Twitter accounts for not citing the source. There's there's only, I guess there's unlimited characters in a tweet now, so how freaking dare you? But no, there's only so many characters in a tweet, and you want the tweet to bang. I don't blame them for not. A lot of people will be like, yo, tag my boy Zealand. No, you don't have to do that. Like, I don't blame them for not tagging me at all. I'm just happy that people enjoyed what we were talking about, because that's cool. All of a sudden, I'm on the other side of the glass watching. It is just a very bizarre feeling, like this one conversation I had with another dude out of pure interest, just asking him questions that has somehow unearthed something that apparently, like, not even hundreds of thousands, like millions of people are interested in and clicking on. I mean, because from goal.com to Daily Mail to USA freaking Today has articles up about it. I got a freaking DM from ESPN FC asking if they could use the footage. Like, I like, that is just, it's super cool. I have no other thoughts on that. There's nothing deep about that. But the second thing, much more prevalent to you and everybody else that's not me, right, is how obsessed people are with Lionel Messi. Like, I knew it. I understood it. I thought I did. Anyways, I saw the people bowing. I saw the people with the tattoos. But it's always been like secondhand smoke for me. I wasn't in the smoking section. I was just walking by it. Every once in a while, I'd see somebody in the smoking section, and I'd like stop by and say hello. But I was on the edge, right? But now I'm doing a podcast with the guy that plays with Messi. I am the smoking section, right? I'm the dude handing out, like, what is it, vapes now? I don't even freaking know. Not a very healthy analogy for your lungs, but I am like the distributor of what people are smoking in the smoking section, because I'm helping distribute these facts about Lionel Messi that apparently, this is insane. You realize how crazy this is? That like, you have a human being and it's a story about that person speaking, not particularly well, in another language as a joke to a teammate, and it ends up everywhere. This is a podcast that we promoted none. Not at all. I tweeted about it once. It was a demo recording. It's like there's some sort of Messi bloodhound surfing the web, right? With how did you even find this? When the podcast went up Friday morning, I typed in player manager on Spotify. It didn't even come up. I had to type in player manager Zealand to get it to come up. That's how, like, it was thrown out into the ether just for good measure. We made like a short or two, but I hadn't even posted the shorts yet by the time this was getting grabbed. How do people find this stuff? It's beyond me. It is very cool to be watching a conversation that I had be blown this widely, but I think it's probably impossible to overstate how obsessed people are with learning every little fact about the inner workings of Lionel Messi's life. But the fact that, like, he can kind of speak English. To me, it makes complete sense that he's never spoken English publicly. I think this is a great example as to why he would never want to speak English publicly. You know how hard it is to word something right in a language you fully understand? Like, do you know how you can still accidentally say something the wrong way and just, that came out wrong. Like, I didn't mean to say it that way. When this many people are scrutinizing every little thing you do not want to be coming out with a half-baked language where you say something wrong and people can take it and run with it. This is the greatest evidence of all time that he should never speak publicly in any language other than Spanish, honestly. If I was him, I would not, ever. I would advise against it. I think it's cool that he can, but this reminds me of Gareth Bale. Like, Gareth Bale was worried about a lot of the same stuff when he was in Spain. He could speak Spanish conversationally. He could speak Spanish well enough that if I spoke Spanish as well as Gareth Bale spoke Spanish, I would tell people I spoke Spanish. But he didn't feel comfortable enough doing it in public, especially when the public was hating on him. Well, Lionel Messi, when he sneezes, there's like 4 articles on Sport Bible about it, right? Now I get it. I finally fully understand how obsessed people are with Lionel Messi. That's my 4 a.m. thought. The podcast's an hour long. So out of all the stories they picked, maybe this was the best one. I don't know. You could be a judge for yourself. But now I'm gonna show up to the next podcast. I'm just ask Julian, like, hey man, what's Messi's favorite flavor of ice cream? And like 5 million people are gonna read about it the next day, apparently. I don't know. So stay safe out there, sailors, and don't blame Lionel Messi if he never speaks publicly in English. But he can, allegedly, speak it a little bit. To Julian Gressel, and in like Bud Light commercials for the Super Bowl. That's it. I gotta go to sleep so I can run tomorrow. Now, I'm gonna eat some turtles. Heh.